Well, a lot of the subscribers probably know the basics of the controversy, but let me get through it for those coming into it totally new. Mike Rinder and Aaron Smith Levin used to be fairly close friends and allies, but they had a falling out last year over the Aftermath Foundation. And I actually agree with Aaron that the foundation was taken from him with very suspicious motives. But ever since then, Aaron has been radically revising the record to make himself look very, very good and make Render look really, really bad. And my basic judgment is both of them are very troubled figures. I just want to focus on one particular controversy because it is so extraordinary in that usually we're disputing, well, what did Aaron know? What did Aaron not know? And what did Mike Rinder know? And what did Mike Rinder not know? But in this case, it's very clear Aaron knows because he interviewed this particular woman. And who is she? Well, this is Rachel, who, being very simplistic, essentially did a lot of media relations and camera work for David Miscavige, the titular head of the Church of Scientology. She basically took a lot of photos with him as well as was videotaping a lot of events. And near the end of her career in Scientology, she's gay and there's a lot of homophobia in the Sea Org, the elite part of Scientology. So she was feeling very disillusioned and almost wanted to leave. But before then, they had her speak with someone, and she found out this person was basically guilty of a lot of crimes against children. Because this YouTube, I have to be very, very careful with the language. I'm only going to use a very small excerpt of her conversation with Mike Rinder, where she reviews this very disturbing case.
He would sneak into the bedrooms of the younger girls at night.
Now, in this particular case, Mike Rinder, when she was trying to leave and he was helping her to leave, he encouraged her to go to the FBI and report these things. And she had tried to report these things in Scientology. She went to all kinds of organizations, including OSA, which is a basic kind of spy agency that Rinder used to head while he was in Scientology as well. So she tried to report this inside Scientology, and then when she left, she reported it again to the FBI, to Interpol, because this person, we're going to call him M, and M was doing a lot of these crimes in Europe. So there's a lot of questions about regulations and statute of limitations, so on and so forth. But the basic gist is nothing was going to happen. She reported it, and the FBI apparently has looked into the case, but isn't really doing anything active. Now, here's where it gets shocking with Aaron. Aaron also interviewed Rachel. He did an interview on his YouTube channel, Growing Up in Scientology, and it's a long interview. Now, the focus of the interview there is slightly different, but he did cover the case of M. And in fact, went over how he was having trouble on his YouTube channel, quote, reporting on things in Scientology. He wasn't questioning her story. He wasn't questioning that Mike Rinder encouraged her to report these things to the authorities. And this is on that particular area that he says that Rinder needs to do more work on. My judgment of Rinder is he's a very iffy, problematic figure. But in this particular case, it seems like he did the right thing. He helped Rachel get out of Scientology, and he actively encouraged her to report these issues to the authorities. And she did, but it seems we're stuck with the FBI, and not much is happening. And now here's where it gets really grotesque and very frustrating. Well, if Aaron's whole point is that Rinder is, quote, not a good leader, which is like, why do we need a leader? I don't know. That's very questionable itself. But he's made this a big part of his new propaganda that say that Rinder really can't be trusted because he's not going to actively report these things. Well, it's like, okay, fine. But in this particular case, he was encouraging that the crimes be reported.
Was a Sea Org member. Some he was a Scientologist and was out of the Sea Org, but about to go back in. And so it gets a little shady whether he was actively in at the moment of each crime or not. But he was a Sea Org member.
And not much is happening due to the FBI being very, very apathetic. And here's the problem is Aaron isn't really doing anything on this issue either. It seems he reported on M for that interview, and that's about it. He noted it that time. He hasn't really brought it up much at all. And in fact, with Rachel, he's kind of just forgotten about her. It's like Rachel doesn't even exist, even though her wife is on the board of the Aftermath Foundation. And Aaron has gone after a lot of people on the board, but somehow he kind of misses Michelle. Doesn't really talk about Michelle at all, as far as I know. So it's as if Rachel and Michelle don't even exist because their story doesn't line up with the new propaganda. In their case, they had a positive experience with Rinder, so it's not going to work with his new propaganda. Well, the obvious solution is we just look at the broader context and the broader picture, and we look at what Mike Rinder did wrong and what he did right, and try to come up with a general judgment of the good versus the bad. But that's not the new propaganda. We're only going to look at the bad. Anything that is good is going to be minimized or dismissed, including this case. So in the case of M, which, again, Rinder wrote about this on his blog. So again, he's not trying to hide it. He is talking about this. And he is still working with Rachel and her wife. Something is not adding up here. And as far as I know, Aaron is not actively pursuing this case. He is pursuing other cases. He is trying to be very hard on other Scientologists, but not this Scientologist. Even Scientologists who are, quote, covering up crimes against children, he's very active there, but not this particular case. Why not? Well, the problem would be people might look into it further and discover, well, yeah, Rinder's kind of active on this issue too. And that would present a problem because, like, well, wait a minute. It seems in some cases, good or bad, Rinder is doing the right thing regarding this particular issue. It's just not matching the new propaganda, and ergo, the example has to go away. If somebody suffers as a result, it doesn't seem like Aaron really cares. Very troubling question marks about what Aaron is up to. It seems like if the past or even recent events don't fit his narrative, he's going to radically reshape things and make people look a lot worse, even when they might do something that makes them look good. And even when it might help a victim, he doesn't care. It just doesn't fit the new narrative, doesn't fit the new propaganda. Ergo, it never really happened. It's very troubling. But this case of M is very real. I can't talk about it too much because of YouTube censorship, but it is a real case. So I'd encourage people to do more research on this.